It's the state's understanding that Mr. Harris and Ms. Young have come to an agreement on all issues pled for by the state, specifically that the primary conservator switch from Ms. Young to Mr. Harris. Testimony will be that the child has been with Mr. Harris since March of 2022. These orders, Your Honor, would uh, zero out Mr. Harris's arrears based on possession credits, and any funds on hold by the state would be returned or dispersed according to law. And the financial activity report and the state's calculation as the credits will be introduced into evidence. Parents are in agreement to be joint managing conservators, Mr. Harris primary without geographic restriction, Mr. Harris to maintain the child's health and dental. Testimony will be that he has recently been discharged from the military, but he anticipates 6 more months of TRICARE before the CHAMP VA kicks in. Mr. Harris is not seeking any reimbursement from Ms. Young for whatever premiums there might be once the switch happens. And Your Honor, the party's request for this court is that there not be any child support from Ms. Young to Mr. Harris. There was no agreement or request for support from Ms. Young to Mr. Harris since the child had gone to live with the father. And the state has calculated that based on the minimum wage, which will be borne out through testimony, and the mother having 4 other minor children, support from her, if ordered at guideline, would be $158. Parents are in agreement, Your Honor, for the standard possession order to be there as a default in case they can't agree about the child. Testimony will be that both parents are within Harris County. And Your Honor, neither parent is seeking non-disclosure of addresses at this time.
All right, folks, sounds like a unique circumstance here. Again, it's considered to be in the child's best interest that I do order child support, but let me hear what the circumstances I'm looking at, because I just heard that based on the information from the state that there are still 4 of the children in the care of the non-custodial party. So let's find out what's going on here and let me figure out what I'm going to have to try to do. The whole truth and nothing but the truth will help you.
Yes.
Yes.
The state first calls Miss Young. Ma'am, what is your full name?
Samantha Pichel Young
Who is the child in this case?
and Jackson LaShawn Harris.
How are you related to Jackson?
I am his mother.
And ma'am, who is Jackson's father?
Devante LaShawn Harris.
And ma'am, were you able to hear my opening statement to the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that an accurate description of the relief the 3 of us are seeking from the court today?
Yes, ma'am.
And ma'am, is it correct that the prior order in this case is the final decree of divorce between you and Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
And that sets support from Mr. Harris to you in the amount of $450 per month?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it also correct, Ms. Young, that Jackson is the only child between the 2 of you, but each of you does have other minor children?
Yes, ma'am.
And ma'am, as far as when your son went to go live with Mr. Harris, that was something that the 2 of you agreed to then?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also agreed that it would continue without any return of Jackson to your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree, ma'am, that you and Mr. Harris are able to communicate and make decisions in the best interest of your son?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have no problem with your contact information appearing in the court's order?
No, ma'am.
And if any of your contact information, such as phone number, email address, physical address changes, you're able and willing to update Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
And at this time, ma'am, do you have any health coverage in place for your son?
No.
But you're comfortable with Mr. Harris maintaining what's currently in place and then transitioning based on his recent discharge from the military?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, ma'am, as far as your household, who is there besides you?
Right now I have a friend living with me.
And then as far as the other children I was describing to the court, how many do you have?
I have 3.
And then another child we were considering is one you currently pay support for. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, ma'am, what are the ages of these children as compared to Jackson?
2, 11 months, and a 4-year-old.
And then the one you pay support for?
She is 12.
And then, ma'am, you were aware of the state's calculations based on you not currently being employed, correct?
Correct.
Was there anything else, ma'am, you wanted the court to consider at this point?
No, ma'am.
And then, ma'am, as far as the prior support Mr. Harris owed you, all of those payments were to come through the state disbursement unit, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time, the state offers into evidence its financial activity report.
All right, I don't have that one either. You want to share screen? Thank you.
So, page 1 of this, ma'am, you see Mr. Harris's name and your own,
Mm-hmm.
and you've had the opportunity to see other versions of this document, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so when I go all the way to the last page here, Ms. Young, would you agree that it shows a balance for Mr. Harris in the amount of $3,968.53?
Yes, ma'am.
And if I go up or back, ma'am, to where March of 22, when your son went to go live with Mr. Harris, would you agree that it showed 775 at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state offers that into evidence and will ensure a copy is sent over.
All right, thank you very much. First off, I'll start with you, ma'am. Any objection to the state's one coming in evidence?
No, sir.
All right, how about you, Mr. Harris?
No, Your Honor.
All right, state's one is going to be admitted. You may proceed, Ms. Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Young, you saw that the 450s a month continued well up to 2024, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so as far as what the state was explaining to the court, since you and Mr. Harris agreed your son has been with him since March of 2022, we'd essentially be zeroing out any balance owed by Mr. Harris, and anything the state has on hold would be returned to him because he doesn't owe anything, correct?
Correct.
Anything else maybe you wanted the court to consider on these topics?
No, ma'am.
And then, ma'am, as far as the time you're able to spend with Jackson, do you believe you and Mr. Harris can come to agreements on what time you get with him, and failing that, you'd follow the standard possession order?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. At this time, I'll let the state go ahead and call in the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Mr. Harris. Sir, what is your full name?
Devante LaShawn Harris.
And sir, how old is Jackson at this time?
Jackson is 8.
And sir, were you able to hear my opening statement to the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you also able to hear Ms. Young's testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything, sir, in either that you needed to correct?
No.
And so, sir, if the court approves the agreements you and Ms. Young have with regard to your son continuing to live with you being the primary joint managing conservator, able to decide where he lives without geographic restriction, that's part 1 of what you're asking for?
Yes.
Second, sir, would be you and Ms. Young communicating and making sure she gets her time with Jackson, and without an agreement, falling back on the standard possession order?
Yes.
And sir, what health coverage does your son currently have?
TRICARE.
And is that going to change anytime soon?
In 6 months, the coverage ends, but in the meantime, before the 6 months end, he'll transition over to my VA healthcare.
And sir, as far as any reimbursement for any premiums for the medical or dental, were you seeking that from Ms. Young?
No.
And sir, you understand that I had calculated a guideline amount from her to you based on her employment status and the number of minor children she has?
Yes.
And sir, were you wanting any support from her at this time?
No.
And sir, as far as the court should be aware, what is your source of income at this time, if any?
My source of income will be from the VA.
And the recent discharge, sir, when was that effective?
That was effective January 7th.
And do you know, sir, what your projected VA disability award or other amount might be?
It will be $4,500 a month.
And sir, in the time that your son has been with you and you were still ordered to pay support, was there ever a need for financial support from Miss Young or a request that she help out in any way?
No,
And sir, do you believe that there is a reason that this court should allow the two of you to go with zero support?
I'm financially stable. I'll be able to continue taking care of him with no issue.
And then, sir, as far as your contact information, any concerns about it going in the court's order?
No,
Any problem updating Miss Young if any of your information changes?
no.
And then, sir, with regard to your prior order to pay support and us zeroing out the arrears based on the time you've had Jackson, any problem with that?
No,
Anything else, sir, you wanted the court to consider?
no, ma'am.
And sir, just so it's on the record, how many other minor children do you have in your household?
In my household, I only have one, but I also have two other kids that I provide support for that are in Georgia right now.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
All right, then, sir. You and mom both live in Harris County?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay. How often does your son go over to visit his mom, or how often does she get to see him?
She can see him whenever she wants to, Your Honor.
Okay, well, how often has that been in the past, sir? In 2024, was that once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, every 2 months? What are we talking about?
Well, she hasn't asked, I guess, to see him. And I was in El Paso at Fort Bliss. But upon her asking, she would have been able to see him whenever she wanted to, Your Honor.
Right. All right, thank you, ma'am. You have what you said? 2 other children in your household, or 3 other in your children?
I have 3.
All right, and you say there's a 4th child that you ordered to pay child support for,
Yes, sir.
and what county is that child support out of?
Harris County.
And what's the current amount you ordered to pay child support for that child, please?
$250.
Okay, and it's only the 1 child?
Yes.
All right, at the time that was ordered, were you working?
Yes.
Okay, when's the last time you had full or part-time employment, ma'am?
It's been about 2 years.
All right. And at this time, how are you providing for the well, are you obviously you say you're not working, so you're living with someone who's taking care of all the bills, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Anything else from our other witness, Ms. Mongat?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
No.
Okay, I'll tell you what, let me hear a closing. I'll go ahead and take a closing statement, and I'll start with the state to tell the court what the state's requesting, and then I'll allow both parties to tell the court what they're requesting.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state's requesting that the court approve the parties' agreements as to conservatorship, possession, and access, health and dental coverage, no reimbursement based on it being private coverage through the father, and that the court make appropriate findings and rulings as to whether child support from Ms. Young to Mr. Harris should be ordered. Non-disclosure doesn't appear necessary, Your Honor, and I believe you're asking that or ordering that cost be waived due to both parties having been primary in this case.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else you want to tell me, sir? Anything else you requested me to do?
No, Your Honor.
All right, how about you, ma'am?
No, sir.
All right, here's the problem I'm having, folks. Again, zero child support is just really not an option. Ma'am, that's your legal financial responsibility. I'm in agreement with everything else, obviously, granting everything else. I'm going to name you both joint management service. I'm going to be a dad right side down south, that rights unrestricted. I'm going to order that he maintain the health insurance, that mom is not responsible for reimbursement of that. I'll go ahead and grant the standard possession order and as agreed to by the party, so forth and so on. But as far as child support is concerned, the court has to look at this with a non-biased eye and a non-gender biased eye. If it's dad or mom, I'm supposed to order child support unless there's a legal reason where the court should not. And I understand there's a financial circumstance here that is not the norm. But the bottom line is, I didn't hear any testimony that tells me that the mother is either disabled or unable to work at least at some type of full-time job with full-time job at minimum wage. So at this time, based on the fact that she has, I'll ask the state to go ahead and tell me. I was thinking of just the one child, obviously, that she's already paid child support for, but she's got 3 in, so it would be 4 in and 1 out. So 1 in and 4 out. So what does the state calculate what the child support would be? Because I'm probably not going to order the entire amount, but I am going to order something. So has the state done a calculation based on the minimum wage presumption for these circumstances?
Yes, Your Honor, 158.
All right then. All right then. Based on that, now and I can always do the 10-15% off that, so I can go ahead. I'll go ahead and order. Ma'am, I got to order guideline child support. I'm going to order it at $140 a month. I am going to give it some time before I start because I want you to get your ducks in a row on this one. But again, and of course, if Dad wants to forgive it down the road, he can. But sir, ma'am, if this is just what I have to do, because I would have to find it's in your child's best interest that child support not be paid, and I just can't get there based on this testimony. So I'm going to start that new amount of child support. I'll start the first day of May 2025 for that child support to start. No cash medical and the custody as agreed to and as requested by the state, by the parties, and confirmed by the state. Is there anything else specifically the state needs me to rule on then?
Your Honor, apologies if you said, but no non-disclosure and costs waived.
No non-disclosure. I didn't say no non-disclosure and cost waived due to the fact military service and both parties being parental, having the child live with them. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, again, folks, I'm held to that standard. So that's what I'm going to grant at this point, and I'll allow the state to prepare that order and circulate it, and we're off the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir and ma'am, I'm going to go ahead and send you invitations to breakout rooms if you'll please accept once you see them.
I get it. If you're the mom, they do everything for you, but the dad, they don't do nothing.
That's not true. I put
that is true, sir.
Mother on child support right now. You think I have a problem against putting mothers on child support? That's ridiculous. No, you're listening to father for legal rights instead of actual attorneys.
Well, I can tell you from experience.
No, you did. Well,
because I paid you all the money to serve her.
Sir, in my experience, you didn't do your job. That's the only.
And how was that when I did everything y'all told me to do? You told me to follow the motion, correct?
Okay, we got to move on. I'm not going to argue with you. You're not listening. You don't want answers. You just want to complain. When you leave my complain, but today, you can yell and scream about how I was so unfair and the justice system sucks. But the reality is that's not true.
It is true.
It is not true. Not in your case.